Monsters of Midway, Category 3. You can see the weather was pretty great. It was a little cold, some pretty decent wind coming off the right side here on this side of the course, and then obviously the left side of the course on the other side. So we're starting here with the first lap. I kind of started a little further back than I wanted to, but I start to move up pretty quickly. Take a look at the pavement as we're going around the course, because as you can see, it is not great, and along the gutters there's giant potholes. Some of them are filled with water, but overall, if you stay towards the middle of the race course, it's okay. It's not great, but it's okay. The course is pretty basic. It's 2 really long straightaways followed by 2 left turns on each side of the course. Really simple. Kind of makes it hard for doing a lot of crazy breakaway moves because it's pretty easy to keep the rider in sight. But overall, my plan for this whole race was to just sit in as much as possible, stay out of the wind, and not end up blowing up trying to force a breakaway or getting stuck in the wind. So this is, I believe, the 3rd lap of the race, and we start and there's just a huge burst in speed. The field starts to stretch out a little bit as everyone tries to get into the draft. You can see just there's a huge scramble. Everyone's trying to grab a wheel, and I just find Joe's wheel, and I know he's a rider that I can trust and I can sit on. So I grab his wheel and just kind of am along for the ride at this point. Kind of throughout this whole race, there was just attacks over and over. Here you see the pace kind of picks up with the whole field, and I'm really not trying that hard, and I just end up kind of rocketing towards the front. I noticed the field isn't really doing anything, so I just put in a little bit of an effort. I'm in the wind at this point. I'm off the front, so I keep it a steady effort, but not too hard. Just trying to string out the field a little bit, see if we can split it maybe. And once I look back and see that the rest of the group, almost the whole race, is still behind me, I sit up and I stop putting in the effort because I don't want to burn myself out, especially this early into the race. And this right here is a pretty good example of things I've talked about before, where if a rider goes, you let another rider do the work to reel them in, and you just kind of sit in the draft. I see that rider all the way on the right go. I let the riders next to me that are kind of in front of me pull up to him so that I can just sit in their draft, and that way I have to do a whole lot less work to get back to the front of the race instead of accelerating violently and burning a match to try and get up to that guy who was attacking. And again here, I'm just kind of grabbing other riders' wheels to bridge attacks and trying to stay out of the wind as much as possible. I was really focused on not burning matches for this race. I knew that I had a pretty good sprint. I was feeling good going into the race, so I really just wanted to focus on conserving as much energy as possible. At this point in the race, we're about 20 minutes in, and I noticed that coming out of this corner, Japhet right there with the orange handlebar tape, I noticed that he is going to move up, and I know that that's a pretty attractive wheel to be on, so I start to move up on the other side, kind of in the wind, so not the smartest move up, but I notice Andre right here also jumps, and I know that I can just grab onto his wheel instead of having to bridge that little bit more gap, and it's again just a little bit less work for me, which is perfect. So Andre goes to the front, I'm able to get back into the draft, and at this point I am kind of forced to the front a little bit, so I take a pull, and you'll notice I start to move towards the gutter, and that's because I want to give everyone in this race as little draft as possible. Right here you'll see up on the left there's a pretty strong attack, and he stays away for a little bit, probably about a whole lap, maybe a little bit more than that. And you'll notice that Japhet doesn't chase him either, and I'm certainly not going to burn a match this early into the race. Like I said, about a lap or so later, we have started to reel this rider in off the front. This guy in front of me puts in a giant effort, and we're able to pull this rider back in. We're just riding along, and I notice there's a move with 2 strong riders up the left-hand side of the road. I notice on the right-hand side of the road that 2 other riders are chasing, and I decide that's my ticket, and I get on those wheels and just kind of a free ride up the road to those other 2 riders here. Like I said, this race was full of attacks, so you can kind of see that there are some riders spread out a bit in front of the main group. I notice that Andre is going to try and bridge up to them, so I grab onto his wheel and just sit in the gutter here, trying to stay in the draft. We get pretty close to Brian in the black here from Wolfpack, and Andre flicks me through. I'm certainly not going to pull in front of Andre into the wind, so I just work my way up to Brian's wheel and sit on it. There's one more rider in front of us here, and Brian's putting in a pretty good effort. He also does a pretty good job of keeping me out of the draft because I can't go into the gutter here. You saw that guy as we came around the corner. He's got a few wheels ahead of us. Right here, Rick is on my left talking to me, seeing if I want to try and bridge that, because we're about 40 minutes into the race right now. A couple laps left, I think about 4. With some encouragement from Rick, I decide that's a pretty good move. I'm going to try and bridge it if I can. So I put in a pretty solid effort. I take a quick look back as I do, and I notice that no one is really jumped with me. So I figure, all right, try and get up there. Right about here, it hurts. The wind is blowing hard. I really didn't want to do this, but I know for sure that it's a wasted effort if I just go back to the group. So I dig in, and as I get pretty close, I notice the rest of the group is behind me. So I throttle back my effort a little bit, just enough to catch this guy, but also not have to put in a huge amount of effort and pull everyone along with me. So this is right out of those 2 corners, and just like he should, Mark puts in a huge attack, and he gets a pretty good gap from everyone. This is coming into 4 laps to go, and you'll notice that I don't immediately grab those wheels, and it kind of ends up biting me. I have to do a little more work than I would have liked. But even so, you can still see that Mark's got a pretty good gap. So we do end up bringing Mark back. This is the very next lap. There's 3 to go. You can see that there are a couple gaps in between these riders up front. Right here, I know that I'm good. As long as I can survive to the sprint, I know that I have a pretty good chance of doing pretty well in this race. So the pace is high, but it's a good pace. I feel comfortable. I know what I'm doing. So the front of the race coming into 2 to go. Again, it's stretched out, but the speed is manageable. Rick comes up on the right-hand side of me, and there's a little bit of an attack here. Rick starts to bridge it to try and help, but he ends up getting a gap with the attack. So I sit up a little bit and figure if that's a breakaway that's going to win, I certainly don't want to chase my teammate there. So I let them go and let these other 2 riders do work if they're going to. You can see a bunch of other riders start coming around us. Again, I'm not chasing that breakaway. I'm just sitting in on the wheels. If we end up coming back to the break, great. They don't have a huge gap, so it's not worth it to try and shut down the chase yet. Right now, I'm just kind of sitting in. I know that Rick is strong enough. He's sat in this whole race, so he's not really burned many matches. Right there, you saw, it was crazy. I was trying not to get gapped here. The field is pretty stretched. I had my head down and I wasn't looking, and I almost ran into that pothole. This BCF rider on the right-hand side right there, really good job by him going through that pothole and not going down. He kept it up really good, because it could have ended very, very poorly for either of us. That's why you keep your eyes up during the race, especially in a race like this where the pavement is not great. Right here, 1 to go, you can hear the bell, and the pace starts to pick up. The whole group is together. Everyone's kind of feeling nervous, and I can feel that everyone is feeling nervous. Everybody thinks they have a shot at this. So I know that where I am right now is okay. Probably not the best spot, but I'm comfortable with where I am because I know there's a whole nother backside to move up. Can see everyone just picks up the pace. Rick is here on my right. I tell him, hey, we need to move up. We need to move up. Let's move up on the backside of the course. He knows what we have to do. I know I just have to stick on his wheel. We come around this first corner and into the second corner. A little far back, but I have Rick, and I know that we can move up on this backside of the course. And what happens? Somebody gets caught in one of the cracks, ends up going down. I end up having to grab enough brake where it slows me down and I lose the rest of the front group. At this point, I'm just trying to make up spots, and I see how far the field is in front of me. I know my race is over at that point, past Rick, who ended up getting a flat, and I just kind of sit up and pedal around the rest of the course. Thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, go ahead and click like. If you want to see more like this from me, go ahead and click subscribe. And leave some comments down below on what you thought about this race. Thanks. I'll see you next time.